Hello my friends, welcome back. Second part of my videos about flying online with VATSIM and or IVAO. And today I'm going to show you how I installed the IVAO client. Next time I'm going to show you how the same thing can be done with the VATSIM client. And we're going to look today at one important aspect of getting this whole thing online, and that is the CSL. That's basically the AI traffic, airplanes, objects that you need, the library or whatever it's called, that you need in order to see other airplanes when you're connected. Okay, so let me show you the first step. You basically go onto the IVAO website, http://ivaO/softec/software-asp, or you open up the main page, then you go to resources, and then you go to the software tab, and that's where you end up here. Okay, and then you click on IVAO pilot client and you scroll down. You can download yourself some instructions here for the X-IVAP manual. Don't worry about those, these are not for X-Plane. And then you go here and you pick the correct operating system on which you run X-Plane 11. In my case it's the V040 previous. Although it's not previous, it is actually the current version, and you download that one. This is a zip file. This zip file you will then find in your download folder, and you're going to unpack that zip file into a folder here where we can continue with the installation. Now, IVAO has a big difference to the VATSIM network, and that is they use Teamspeak version 2, which is an older version of Teamspeak. It's an old client, Teamspeak 2. They use that for radio communication, for speaking and listening. And in order to get that to work, if you haven't done so already, you need to install the TS2 client software. It comes actually with your X-IVAP_040_win package, which I have opened here and unpacked. And you can see this executable. You run this executable and you just install it as any other program. What happens then is you will have Teamspeak installed on your system. And we're going to configure Teamspeak in a moment. Okay. So that's one of the steps. The other step is to install the plugin for X-Plane. And you do this by just going into this 4 plugins folder. Then you can see a couple of files. Now, if you're on X-Plane 11, and if you're not running X-Plane 1032-bit anymore, and I would be very surprised if you still do, what you can do is you would copy this, and this to your plugins folder. Or you just copy them all. I just don't like having outdated DLLs in my plugins folder, but if you're unsure, just copy the whole thing. So the idea is that in the end, in your X-Plane resources plugins. So this is under the X-Plane main folder, resources plugins. You're going to have an X-IVAP resource folder, and you're going to have the fmod 64 DLL, and important also the X-IVAP 64 XPL. That's what you need for X-Plane 11. And that is almost what you need to do in order to get the plugin to work. it will actually start, but it has one big problem. There is something missing. And if we look into this folder here, there's the X-IVAP resources folder. This is the folder where all the configurations and other bits and pieces that it needs, like sounds for TCAS alert and disconnected and so on. And then there is some README files. There's some database files for aircraft, airlines, airports. So this is all the ICAO codes, the MTL, which is kind of, it's a model matching library. And there's the actual configuration file that will be written by the client when you make changes to your configuration. Okay, so all of these then sits in stars. There's flight plan folder, textures. These are the ones we can see then in a moment. And then there is one folder here, and it's called CSL. And it is empty when you unpack the X-IVAP for the first time. The important thing is we need to get something in there. Okay, so how to do that? Now, there are several ways. If you look into the installation folder, what you will actually see is something that is called X-CSL. Okay, and there's a program there, and you can start this program, and what it would do is it would actually check somewhere on the internet for a library of AI models. And it used to be that you would download your airplanes from there. But that is important. Don't do that anymore. Because in the installation README, which is also part of, which is also part in here. So if you go one back here in this README, okay, there's a README config and there's a README installation. If you look here, they say, attention, XCSL package shall not be run and installed since the XCSL package is still in old OBJ7 format. Don't mind the OBJ7 and 8. It's basically they're old and they're not supported by the current version of the client software anymore. Therefore, do not touch this. What you should do instead is that you scroll down a little bit and you have two links here. And these here are the so-called Bluebell models. And they are in the correct format, Object 8. And this is about 700 megabyte plus a number of more files, like, for example, the next one, which is Russian stuff. So you get some Antonovs and those kind of things. And you basically download a shitload of object airplanes or airplane objects that the client can then use to display other other participants in the network on your airport and also in air. Okay, so I went to this webpage. It's here. It's the Bluebell Object HCSL package, and when you press on download, what you will see is there's a GA, helicopters, Airbus, and there are quite a few. There are 3 parts. And there are also 4 parts Boeing, jets, props, military. And there's some update here. The repaints you don't really need. But what you definitely need to do when we install the IVAO, you need to also download this file. I'm going to do this, although I have it already, but I couldn't find the original zip, so I'm going to download that as well. What is this doing? This is actually correcting some definitions, and it fixes some vertical offset, which you may get when you are connected to IVAO, and there are players from different simulators and also from different simulators, basically, because what they do is sometimes you get what I call the submarines. So that is aircraft that is displayed too deep, and sometimes you get them too high, and that has to do with the the way that the objects are made, and the vertical offset corrects something that prevents IVAO CSLs to kind of be half sunken in with their wheels into the ground and things like that. So they do some corrections, and you definitely need to install this, otherwise you might get some funny looking AI aircraft to show. So the other link actually goes here, and you can see there are some typical Russian planes. And not only that, when you go one further up, you actually get quite a collection of individual aircraft. The only thing you need to watch out for is that they are in this object 8. So you need to check for this object 8 in the name, because only then are they compatible with the current client. So here's, for example, someone made a Dash 7 and all kinds of aircraft. And in between you also find a Fokker 50 or an Avro Vulcan, and you can go through here. Just make sure that you get object 8. Not all of them are in this zip file that we've just downloaded. Okay, so here's, for example, Boeing 732. Okay, and so whenever you're connected later on and you realize that you're having some trouble seeing an airplane because it is of a type that you haven't installed, you can check here on the forums page, and you can get yourself possibly a model for that particular aircraft so that it shows properly. Here's, for example, the Russian. Here are the standard Bluebell. But again, watch out for the object 8. That's important, because otherwise it may not work. So that's that. And now we need to unpack those. And that is actually not very difficult, because basically what you do is you go to your resources plugins folder, X-IVAP resource, CSL, and you unpack the content of the zip files as you see it here. So the content of all the Airbus zip files, you make sure that they all land under the BB Airbus folder. Basically, you just put them in there as they are also in the zip file. Then there's a Boeing folder with all the Boeing variants. You can see that's, for example, Boeing 747 Freighter. There's a Boeing 733. Apparently, we do not have a Boeing 732. So if someone is flying with an older Boeing, with a 737-200, for example, this wouldn't be in here. So as we've just seen, there was a packet called, let me go back there. There was a 737-200. I think here it is. So let me download this one. I'm going to install it as well. Download this file. Okay. Right. So that'll take a wee moment. So just for an example, I have actually downloaded the Russian objects, and this is the RuScenery_CSL zip. You put it in here, okay, and yeah, here you can see all the Antonovs, the Ilyushins. So if you want to see Russian style aircraft, that's the packet for you to do. And to install it is actually quite simple. You just grab this and you bring it in here. Okay, and now it has become part of your CSL library. So the next time an Ilyushin 76 or an Antonov or something is online, I will be able to see the model. All right. The other thing that we have just downloaded is now the 732 objects. Here you can see again, this is a folder, but the difference is that this is only one aircraft, and there is this XSB aircraft CFG. And what that does is, that's actually in all of these folders. So if you look here, we have an XSB aircraft TXT, which is a bit larger, because it basically says we have the type Antonov 74, and then it points to the respective object here. All right, and it also defines what airline this is. This is kind of the I guess it's the ICAO of the airline, the way it looks, something like that. The airliner and the airline, yeah. Okay, so it basically defines all the available AI models for those types here, and the client is able to read this. And the same we've got here. Just the way it has been defined is that instead of being in subfolders, it has actually put this in directly. So what you can do is you can take this folder and you put it here. All right. And there we go. Now we have also 732, at least some objects, and you can extend this. And if you find other aircraft, you can add them to your CSL library. So that's the way you extend your CSLs. By the way, these CSL files have actually been created for XQuarkBox, which is the program that you connect with VATSIM. But they do work as well in IVAO. But there's a little but. What you need to do is you need to actually apply these vertical offsets. So there is this bb_IVAO_vert offsets zip file, and you can see that it actually contains the same folders that I have in here as well, although there are a few less, because, for example, I didn't put in military aircraft and I left out the helicopters. Okay, but basically what it does is it replaces the XSB aircraft TXT. Okay, so what you do is you basically bring all these folders in here and you place the XSB aircraft TXT or replace it in the respective folders. If you're like me and you haven't copied all of them, leave those out that you haven't got here. All right. Now this has only been done for the Bluebell objects. This doesn't exist for the other ones. Okay, so put these in order to make sure that your Bluebell models are displayed correctly also with the IVAO client. But as I say, these are originally are VATSIM or XQuarkBox models, but they do work in X-IVAP as well, and they work very well. Actually, I use them now for quite some time. And that basically is it. You have done the installation, and so just to repeat, you have added these models to your CSL. You've installed the plugin by making sure that you have your FMOD64 DLL and your X-IVAP 64 XPL in the main plugins folder. And that is basically it. That's the installation. So once you've done these steps I've just shown you, your plugin should start up. Which means that when you start X-Plane now, the first thing that happens, or what you will see, is that there's something opening called the Teamspeak. So bringing this in. So when you start X-Plane now, what you will see is this here. This is Teamspeak 2. And when you start this for the first time, what you need to do is you need to actually define what your sound input-output options are. Amongst other things, you need to define a push-to-talk key. And here's a bit of a problem, and I haven't yet been able to easily resolve this. I tried, but I couldn't do it. I couldn't connect this to a joystick button. Unlike the XQuarkBox, where this is absolutely very easy, X-IVAP has this external program. And because it is external, it is not aware of your joystick buttons. Therefore, I have not been able to define a joystick. I tried a couple of tricks and programs and stuff. Maybe there is a way, but it doesn't appear to be an easy one because I couldn't find it. All right. And even the solution that I found, which doesn't cost a lot of money, it didn't really work the way I needed it. So I created a key. In my case, I use the escape key on my keyboard here in front of me. It's okay, it's not great, but it does the job. And it is important that you define yourself a key that is not used by anything else. All right, so that's the one thing. And the other thing you need to do is you need to go to options, and you need to define where your microphone is. In my case, it's the Rode Podcaster that I'm also talking to right now. And you need to define where you want to listen to ATC. And what I do is I do not use the main speaker. I usually use some, for example, the audio output of the Rode Podcaster microphone, because it also has a little amplifier in there, and I can actually use this as a sound output. Okay, this means that the aircraft noise and ATC are on different channels, and I can put up a headset and I hear ATC without any kind of other noises and sounds in the background. Up to you how you define this, but this is the two things that you need to do. All right, and Teamspeak will now always start automatically when you start X-Plane, having the X-IVAP activated. That's the one thing. And when we jump into the simulator, which I had started before, what you will also see is this here. This is the client window, and this here is telling you that your TCAS will only show 2 targets. If you need more, increase the number of airplanes in the rendering settings. So why is that? Well, if you go to, I think it was flight configuration, then go to where your aircraft are and press AI aircraft. And I have only defined 1 AI aircraft. And I think if you want more aircraft to be shown in the TCAS, you need to add additional aircraft here. That's what I understand, but there need to be at least 1 in here for the client to work, if I interpret that correctly. So here's now the client. With the tab key, you can bring it in or out. And one of the first things we need to do is now we need to configure some things. So we go to preferences, and you see some stuff like, for example, IVAO weather. If you're running your own weather in X-Plane, you keep this off. If you want IVAO to send you the weather and update the weather in the simulator, you can turn this on. I think, at least for my taste, it doesn't really work very well. So I leave this off, and I have my own weather injection from outside using VATSIM data partially. The multiplayer, I think that needs to stay on. So don't mess with these settings, and also the Teamspeak voice, that needs to be on. I'm not sure what clamp planes on means. Some clamping, whatever. Okay, so that's the preferences we just looked at. You can actually show this console, which is kind of a debug thing, but yeah, you usually don't need this. What it shows you is this is a B738. We are at Athens, LGAV, and TCAS will only show 2 targets. That's what they're telling you. Okay, so let's turn this off again. Now, if you want to connect, the first thing you need to do is you need to actually provide your IVAO credentials, which I'm not going to show you. You got your ID, and you also got your password, and you need to give your full name, and you need to give your home airport, and yeah, that's it. So when you connect, you also have to pick a call sign, and with this call sign you're going to show up then on the radar scopes of IVAO controllers. Right, so that's that. Now, let me see. We are in Athens because I have seen before that in Athens there was traffic. So what I would do now is I would open the browser and I would go to the IVAO web eye and just check if there are any aircraft, at least any aircraft appear to be at the airport. Doesn't doesn't actually look like it. Let's see here. Now, there's one thing I'm not sure is it could be that the IVAO WebEye only shows aircraft that are in the air and have the transponder on, whereas I think, let me see, in VATSIM you would see them actually also parked. So why don't we do the following? I'm going to connect now, and then we're going to check what's in the vicinity. So I'm pressing connect here. I'm using the EU3 server. I say connect. And now what you see is aviation organization, blah, 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 and so on. And the next thing, actually, I forgot. I should have done this before. Go to the 122.8, which is the Unicom frequency. 122.8. So 122.8 Unicom. Okay. And yeah, we've understood that we haven't filed a file plan, as I'm not intending to fly today. We're just leaving it like this. And now we'll see if we can see any other aircraft. It looks almost as if we are not going to have any traffic here. So, or maybe over there. Could that be? I think something is moving there. Could that be an aircraft? Let me see. So, let's do the quick move. Yep, there you go. There is one. And it is an WestJet. Not sure if this is actually a WestJet or if someone is using, a model that can't be matched. Who knows? But anyway, we have a model here. We are online. And yeah, that's great. By the way, if you press here, it will actually give you available frequencies. And we do have actually quite a bit of controllers here. So I'm not going to stay online now too long. I just wanted to show you. I wanted to check that it works. And you can see it actually does work. And how you actually then communicate with your controllers, that will be in some other videos that I'm going to do, where I'm going to perform some flights on IVAO and on VATSIM. And we're going to look at some aspects of how you do the communication with the controller. Okay, so that's it. I'm going to disconnect again, and we have hereby verified that it works. Now, what we could have done, but I didn't want to do that today, is that we could press the escape key or whatever key you define, and we would have been able to talk to a controller. I did not want to do that now. I just wanted to have a quick check that the CSL models work, that the plugin works, and that Teamspeak is there. Okay, that's it. I hope that was helpful. Until next time.